What's going on, y'all? It's JD Piquel. Today on the Hard Count, I'm going to tell you which teams actually have a chance to win the Big 12. Welcome to the Hard Count. This show right now, you're probably watching it on 365 Sports. If you are one of the 200 some odd subscribers to CFB with JD, thank you so much. You don't need to do a thing. Maybe tell a friend to tell their friends to subscribe so we continue to grow that community and get everybody on board there. If you're watching on 365 Sports, keep your subscription there. In the same token, there is a link there's a link in this video below me to subscribe to CFB with JD. That is the channel that this show itself will be moving to at the end of this week. So if you want to continue to watch this show, continue to go back and forth in the comments with me, tell me what you want to see. If you want to follow along with this and all the shenanigans we have going on here, there'll be a lot of Big 12 content, so I'd encourage you to subscribe. That's all moving to CFB with JD. Again, the channel is linked in the subscription below. With that behind us, there has been a ton of talk. I mean, like, probably too much talk about how wide open the Big 12 is. And I think to a degree that's true. In the same breath, I think that there's probably like 4 teams that really have a shot at this thing. Because all year long you've heard, wow, Big 12's so wide open. Well, it's anybody's season. Anybody could win it. Who's going to be? And I'm just here to tell you I think that's not completely true. And we're just going to talk about the teams that actually have a chance, in my own humble opinion at this point in time. Obviously, Oklahoma. That was everybody's pick before the year began. They've won the conference. I couldn't even tell you how many years in a row now. Lincoln Riley just continues to churn out 5 stars, great quarterbacks, whatever it may be. They've had some problems in Norman. And I think that's probably putting it lightly. They've had some problems in Norman. They're still undefeated, found a way to win this last week against West Virginia at home on a last-second field goal. Spencer Rattler drove them down the field. They found a way to get 3 points to win the game. But they haven't looked like the Oklahoma we expected to see. Didn't look great against Nebraska, but still found a way to win. Didn't look great against Tulane, still found a way to win. Great teams find a way to win when it's not their day, but it can't not be your day as often as it has been for Oklahoma. So the defense has started to look better. They looked pretty good against West Virginia. I mean, only allowed 13 points. You're going to win a lot of football games. You only allow 13 points. Let's just say that. So they've started to pick it up, started to get it together. I think Alex Grinch has got that team playing a lot better right now. As they go into Big 12 play, I think maybe it started to click a little more for them on that side of the football. But the fact remains, Spencer Rattler is going to be the reason you win or don't win this conference. He has all the ability in the world. And I feel like we've said that whether it's the Big 1-2, whether it's previous episodes of the Hard Count, like there is no denying how talented Spencer Rattler is. And so if he figures it out upstairs, if he finds a way to just be patient with what the defense is giving him, they're going to win a lot of football games. They may as well win the conference. However, if he continues to play selfish football, if he continues to be greedy with trying to push it downfield, make a big play, and put the ball in jeopardy, Oklahoma will win a lot of games, but they'll probably lose 2 or 3. And I don't shy away from saying that because you have people that live and die by Sooner football chanting for your backup. Now, let me make sure I make this clear. Spencer Rattler gives you the best chance as an Oklahoma Sooner fan to get where you want to go. He's the best chance. You're playing Caleb Williams, you have a whole nother conversation. I don't think Oklahoma is even sniffing a conference title. So Spencer Rattler is your guy, but he has to stop making these boneheaded mistakes and putting his team at a disadvantage. So how they win it, Spencer Rattler's got to fix some issues and grow up in a hurry. He's got to take control of this team because he still hasn't done that yet. Oklahoma's probably still the most talented team in this conference, but they will go as Spencer Rattler goes and go as far as he allows them to go. Next, you got Baylor. And Baylor, for a lot of people, wasn't even close to this conversation in the preseason. And that's fair because they were 2-7 a year ago, fired their entire offensive staff. You weren't even sure who their quarterback was because your starter for forever grad transferred to Utah. And all they've done is find themselves number 21 in the AP poll, have an enormous win against Iowa State, who a lot of people picked to win the conference before the year started, and their defense looks very, very good. Borderline elite. Now, they allowed 29 points this last weekend, but still found a way to make big plays to win the game. I'm not overly concerned because Breece Hall is a generational talent, if not generational, borderline generational talent across college football. So how do they find a way to win it? I think they have to find a way to continue to trend upwards. When I say they, more specifically, Gary Bohannon has to continue to trend upwards because when Baylor will be in trouble is when they find themselves being one-dimensional. if they can only run the football. And they have two really strong backs in Abram Smith and Treston Ebner. Both were averaging over 100 yards going into Saturday's game. They've got some weapons, but in the same token as Oklahoma, their quarterback's going to really determine how high their ceiling is. And I understand there's a lot of things that would have to go right for Baylor to be able to win the Big 12, but the fact remains they're still undefeated, 1-0 in conference play. 2-0 in conference play. No disrespect to Kansas. But they have to continue to be balanced offensively, and Gary Bohannon is the reason why they will be able to be balanced offensively. So can they win it? There is no evidence on film that says they can at this point in time. Texas is also a team that I think is still very much in the hunt. They may have found their quarterback. Casey Thompson looked lights out, threw 5 touchdowns, over 300 yards. And for a second, you're like, well, why wasn't he starting the whole time? And that's a whole other conversation for people that are a lot smarter than me and that are a lot closer to Texas than me. But you may have found your quarterback if you're Texas. Bijan Robinson is one of the best players in the country. I'd go as far to say he's probably the best running back in the country right now. Show me somebody better. That's where I stand on that. Defense is pretty solid. Defense is good. I don't know if they're great just yet, but they're continuing to build. I'm a little bit concerned you allowed as many points as you did against Texas Tech, but when the offense scores 70, you're having to be out there quite a bit. So I like their defense, don't love their defense. The biggest improvement for me is where they're at on the offensive line, because going into this game right now, I was saying, okay, well, what do they have offensively? Because against Arkansas, Hudson Carter's running for his life. And honestly, I was saying maybe the offensive line is the reason why Hudson Card isn't playing. But against Texas Tech, all they did was average, I think it was close to 7 or 8 yards a carry and allow 0 QB pressures. So they're top 10 in rushing yards a game right now, top 10 in yards per rush right now. The offensive line has looked much improved. If they can continue that, they got a really good chance. But how they can win the Big 12, if Casey Thompson just asserts himself as the alpha male. If he takes over this team, says, this is my team, we're going to go as far as I allow us to go, and he becomes a game breaker. Because Casey Thompson's got a lot of talent. If he can be that complement to Bijan Robinson and allow defenses to have to account for him and Bijan Robinson and both be equally effective, Texas has got a really good shot. And again, I understand a lot of other things have to happen for Texas, but that's the biggest thing for me. Is Casey Thompson going to be the one that takes over this team and says, no, this is my team, follow me? TCU is, I think, the third team that has a really good chance to be in the conversation for a Big 12 title. Now, they allowed 42 points to SMU off of a bye week. That's not a good look. SMU's a really good team. I think they're one of the better offenses in the country. Tanner Mordecai, Oklahoma transfer, he's a stud. But you allow 42 points after you had a whole week off to prepare for this exact team. That makes me a little bit nervous if you're TCU. The running game's elite. Zach Evans is a grown man, ran for over 100 yards again. He's going to be the heart and soul of that offense. Can Max Duggan be a complement to him? Can Max Duggan continue to allow teams to have to account for him and Zach Evans? That's going to help them. But what it comes down to for me, again, how you win the Big 12, can your defense take the next step? Can your defense not even take the next step? Can they take a step? Because now we've seen them both against Cal and SMU have troubles against these offenses. So if they're having to try and get in boat races with people and try and get in track meets with people, they're going to be in trouble. I don't think the offense is built to score 40 a game, and that's just the unfortunate truth. We're going to learn a lot about them against West Virginia. I think that's a swing game if we find out, hey, TCU's in the upper echelon of the Big 12, or if they're going to kind of be that middle-of-the-pack team again. Remains to be seen. Really looking at that game to see exactly what we have in TCU. As of right now, I believe they're 0-0 in Big 12 play. So the race is yet to begin for TCU, but this weekend, paired with the Cal game, make me worried about their defense. Finally, the last team that I think is still in the conversation and has a chance to win the Big 12 is Oklahoma State. And if you've been keeping up with this show or the big one too, you know I'm pretty cold on Spencer Sanders. I'm pretty cold on Oklahoma State in general. But bottom line, they're still undefeated. They're 4-0. They haven't really looked great outside of this past weekend against Kansas State, but they're 19 in the AP poll, and they found ways to win. Similar to Oklahoma. They've had days where their quarterback just doesn't have it. Don't know what it is. Maybe he ate some funny cereal. Maybe he didn't sleep well. Had a bad dream, whatever it is, he didn't have it that Saturday, and they still found ways to win those football games against Boise State at home, which is a tough place to play and a good team to beat. So I'm still not sold on Oklahoma State, but you got to put them in the conversation because of what they have on defense being extremely solid. Also, their running game has picked them up multiple times. So For Spencer Sanders, he played great this past weekend. Can he continue that kind of production? That's going to be how they win the Big 12. And notice the common thread, nearly among all of these teams, this conference is a quarterback-driven conference in a lot of ways. You don't win the Big 12 without a great quarterback. That's just the way it is. Look at the past winners. It's been Oklahoma. And why? Because they've had the best quarterback in the conference year in and year out. Teams that have been snubbed, and I'm going to try and make this as quick as possible because I don't want to get too far in the weeds here, but it's not Iowa State. And maybe you say, oh, well, they lost to Baylor, you're overreacting. They lost to a good Iowa team, you're overreacting. Iowa State still has to go to Norman. Iowa State still has to go to Morgantown, which is going to be a tougher game than I think we all anticipated before the year began. Iowa State still has to play Texas, who just hung 70 on Texas Tech. And so if their offense starts to take flight like that, Iowa State's not hanging with them. Now, there's a lot of football left to be played. They're not mathematically eliminated by any stretch of the imagination. But we've seen Iowa State get exposed now on multiple occasions. They don't have the offense to run with these horses, folks. They just don't. They've got a great running back. They've got some great tight ends. They don't have the firepower to get into track meet with these teams like I think they will have to be able to find their way back into the conference title game. I'm out on Iowa State. And for the same reason, I'm out on Kansas State. I love Kansas State. I love the way they're built. I love that they have a really strong defense. Had a strong defense before they played Oklahoma State, I should say. I love the way they run the football. I love Deuce Vaughn. I think he's one of the best backs in all of the conference, probably honestly in all of college football. But in the same token, they don't have the horses to run with people when they get behind. And we saw that this weekend in Stillwater. Oklahoma State and Spencer Sanders had too much going for them, had too many points they were scoring for Kansas State to keep pace. And that's the unfortunate nature, but I don't think both Kansas State and Iowa State are done losing because of the way they're built. Finally, West Virginia. And now West Virginia was tough for me because I wasn't sold on them before the year and then became a really big fan of West Virginia after they beat Virginia Tech, so I've kind of been a victim of the moment recently. I love their defense. I love their front seven. It was so much fun watching them get after Braxton Burmeister and upset Virginia Tech. Like, that was awesome. I say upset. I think West Virginia might have actually been favored. Virginia Tech came into that game number 15 in the country. They don't have enough on offense. Not only do they not have enough on offense, they only scored 13 points this last week against OU. They could have beaten OU very, very easily. A couple touchdowns here, and that game's not even close. Jarrett Doege is second in the conference right now in terms of passing yards, but they turn the ball over around 2.5 times a game. And that's the stat for me that just makes the difference. Anytime you give your opponent 2.5 more possessions, you're not winning the football game. And so the unfortunate nature of that is West Virginia just shoots themselves in the foot too many times to have a chance to win this thing. So in summary, your teams that are going to win the Big 12 is either Oklahoma State, TCU, Baylor, Texas, or Oklahoma. Those are your horses. Bet on them. Don't touch anybody else because they're not going to win it for you. Finally, subscribe to CFB with JD in the description below. Comment back and forth. We can talk about it. I want to have this content driven by you, the viewer, because that's what this is, a community. It's us all together, loving the thing that we love the most, college football. Again, at the end of this week, we are no longer on 365 Sports, so I encourage you to join the party as it rolls over there. We will keep the party rolling, and we will see y'all next time.